There is no redemption for him who thus suffers from himself. Expect it to be a quick death. Your killing, you judges, should be a mercy and not a revenge. And since you kill, see to it that you yourself justify life. In this episode of Thus Spoke Zarathustra, I think it's chapter 12, it's called On the Pale Criminal. Zarathustra is teaching us about the pale criminal. Who is the pale criminal? Well, the pale criminal is a person who done a wrong deed, whether it's raping, murdering, stealing, taking advantage of someone else, whatever it may be. And because he cannot comprehend his own wrong ideas and his own wrong deeds, he's becoming pale from the guilt. So he's justifying it by giving rational excuses to his action. Today we're going to talk about how we in life becoming a pale criminal, why is the pale criminal a dangerous idea, how to prevent the guiltiness from occurring to us and affecting our lives, and how exactly should we act upon. Let's dive in. When we kill someone who did the wrong deed, like the death penalty for that instance, we're not necessarily, we were not supposed to do it because we want revenge or because we want punishment. We do it because we feel sorry for the man who did that action. Human beings, unless of course you're a psychopath, which is usually not the case for most human beings when they make a crime, feel very bad about their crime because the action of their crime does not always represent the thought that was behind it. It doesn't represent the deed that was behind it. What exactly would I mean? Well, let's say right now I kill someone, and we will dive into it deeper later. I think about something that I want to do. I say I want to kill that guy. Then I make the action itself. So I take a knife and I stab him in the heart. Then I see the guy is dead. The three things behind it doesn't have direct correlation of the thought because we're not that rational. The thought itself occurs and then the action occurs, and then when we see the actual action, we feel very bad. We can justify it beforehand with so many excuses and reasons, but the second it actually happens, we always, or usually, or at least most of the times, feels bad about it. And is continuing and saying, you should say enemy, but not miscreant. You should say invalid, but not scrounger. You should say fool, but not sinner. The person who commits a crime, the person who commits a wrong deed, cannot be acted upon and cannot be called upon as a bad person. Because if we call him a bad person, we're basically taking out the idea that this person has made the wrong decision. It is not because he's intrinsically bad. It is not because he made a sin towards life. It is because he made a sin, or at least a wrong deed, that was acted upon from a way of foolishness, from a way of understanding the situation. This is not liberal forgiving of, we should forgive the criminal and thank him for, or understand his psyche and not blame him for his thoughts or for his actions. No. This is a way of much deeper understanding upon the crime itself. Because if we conclude society to sinners and right doers, then we're basically departing the idea that the right doer can also make a crime. It is not true. Every one of us are pale criminals. Every and each one of us can make a crime. The idea is not to say, we're good people, we're separated from the crime, but to understand the psyche that comes along to the idea of committing a crime. What is it exactly that makes us to commit a crime? How do we exactly justify the act of committing a crime? How do we feel upon committing a crime? And then we can really understand on how not to commit a crime in our own lives. It's like Nietzsche said it very nicely about the idea of the thought being different from the action, being different from the image of the action, basically the result after the deed. And he says it as such. But the thought is one thing, the deed is another, and another yet is the image of the deed. The wheel of casualty does not roll between them. There is not a straight line forward between those three things. When we think about something, we act upon it which is usually a bit different than the initial thought that occurred, and then the image of the action that we did is usually different than the action and the thought itself. That's why the thought itself is much more important than the result of the action, because the nature of the things are more important than the thing itself. And he continues and says, an image made this pale man pale. He was equal to his deed when he did it, but he could not endure the image after it was done. After I stabbed someone in the heart, which of course I haven't, but after someone stabs someone in the heart, in his mind it's currently the right choice to make, otherwise he wouldn't have done it. The second it has been done, he's, so to speak, waking up to reality, understanding the wrong deed, and cannot compare or cannot endure the fault and the guilt, so he's blaming it by other situation. I had to kill him, he fucked my wife, I had to kill him, he cursed me, I had to kill him, he would kill me, whatever the fuck. Because we cannot endure and feel comfortable with the fact that we made such a wrong deed. That is why the criminal is pale. He's pale from his guilt, not from the action itself. When we want to talk about a crime, or when judges want to talk about a crime, they will make it rational. Because again, also us human beings cannot comprehend that other human beings are committing crimes just because of a mistake or just because of a wrongdoing. We have to think that that person did it because he's a bad person. So what will the judges say? Well, the judges, in case of a murder, will probably say something like, why did this criminal murder? He wanted to steal. But I tell you, his soul wanted blood, not booty. He thirsted for the joy of the knife. The cause of his action, for example, when someone steals, is not because he stole something from someone and then that someone saw him, so I had to kill him. No, he did it because of the will to power. If you've seen my other videos about Nietzsche, you understand the concept. Nietzsche is all about the will to power, but he did it from the will to power. He did it because he wanted blood on his sword. And every each one of us, in some sort, wants that blood on the sword. The second that you will understand that the reason that you're doing an action is because of the animalistic interest behind it, and not the rationalizing about it, it will be much more easy to not conduct that crime, if that makes sense. Because when you understand the nature of something, it's much easier to avoid it. And he continues and says, but his simple mind did not understand this madness, and it persuaded him otherwise. What is the good of blood? It said. Will you not at least commit a theft too? Take a revenge? He could not endure and he could not comprehend the fact that only wanted his blood on his sword. So he at least had to rationalize it by stealing. It's exactly the same thing as when we're committing any sort of crime. Instead of saying, I did it because I don't care, I did it because I wanted power, I did it because X, Y, and Z, we make some excuse about it that will rationalize our action, not because that's the reason we made it, because we cannot endure the thought itself and we cannot comprehend or endure the fact that we did something so wrong. Now, the most interesting part, which Freud also talked about him in his books, is that the crime that the pale criminal is committing, or the crime that we commit, or the crime that the criminal commits, or whatever, is not necessarily after the fact, it's also behind the fact, also before the fact. Basically, when we're making an action, there has to be a thought to it, and the guilt already occurs when the thought itself arises. We already feel guilt only from the thought itself. The guilt does not always come around when the act itself is committed. So Nietzsche is saying, behold, here stands the pale criminal. Before he performed this deed, his soul was already pale. The thought itself of the action that we want to do is sometimes making us even more guilty than the action after the act. So in order to conceal this guilt, we commit the act in order to rationalize the thought. Okay? So a simple example for us, I think it's cheating on your girlfriend will be much more of a simple, or for a boyfriend, will be a much more simple example, because murder is something that is very far from most of us. Cheating is something that we can all either been cheated on or cheated sometime in our life, or at least hopefully not, yeah, but it's probably part of our life. So when we think about having sex with another partner, which is not our main partner, the thought itself creates guilt for us. We feel guilty about it. And in many cases, we say, oh, well, my partner is a piece of shit either way. He never loves me, never has sex with me, he's not enough for me. I have to do it in order to feel good or to understand if I still love him or to be a better man or to be happier or she cannot hold me or whatever. And then we make that action in order to, so to speak, hide our guilt from the thought itself. Okay, so that's a very interesting thought. And when you feel that guilt, when you feel the guilt of the thought itself, instead of trying to conceal it with some sort of action that will make you feel reasonable about the guilt that you felt from the thought itself, get rid of all of it and understand it deeper and understand that that's what you think and that's completely normal, because if it wasn't normal, you wouldn't have thought it from the begin with. I was a scammer for a full year. I scammed people for a living. That's what I did. I sold shitty cosmetics that were basically glue and lights for people in thousands and tens of thousands of dollars for a full year. I don't know if I ruined anybody's life. I probably ruined a few people's weeks, probably even months for some of them. I don't think I hope I didn't ruin anyone's life, but I did nothing well for that period of time to anyone. Literally no one. And the guilt was there. I cannot hide it, and I'm still feeling guilty about it today, but the guilt was always concealed by the rationalizing of saying, I need money, there's no other way for me to practice my sales skills without that. If I wouldn't have done it, someone else would have done it, so it's much better we with a kind heart will do it. I don't care about humanity, I only care about myself. This is the way of life. It's either you eat or get eaten. There is no such thing as moral. Whatever it is, right? Many rational excuses. Now, the thought itself of committing this kind of thing, instead of me understanding that what I'm doing is wrong and I cannot keep doing it anymore, I concealed it after the fact by actually doing it and therefore feeling better about it. I think that when we look at our lives and when we look at the actions that we're doing, whether it's a wrong deed as simple as eating a cake when you're trying to lose fat or cheating on your girlfriend on the other side, instead of trying to conceal the thought by saying that it's rationalizing it as in, oh, I didn't eat all day long so I'm allowed to do it, or my girlfriend is a piece of shit, I can cheat on her. Take a deep breath, understand that you're a human being and those thoughts are completely normal, and then decide if you want to act upon them because you want to act upon them, and then the guilt will disappear, or you don't want to act upon them and then you'll just not do it. Because there is no such thing as right or wrong. Of course, there is extreme cases. I'm not telling you to kill someone just because he made you angry, but there's no such thing as right or wrong. Everything is your choice, and everything has consequences. If you cheat on your girlfriend, then she will find out, she will break up with you, and that's the consequence of your actions. That's completely normal. If you eat a cake while you're still trying to lose fat, you will get fatter. That's completely normal. Both of them are wrong deeds, of course, on completely different ends of the moral structure. But if you understand that the action that you are doing will have the consequence of it, and you're feeling normal about it and justifying it, not from rationalizing it, but from actually, okay, I understand that's the consequence of what I'm doing, I'm still deciding to do it, then go ahead and do it. I want to leave you with a question in your life is, when are you doing wrong deeds because you're rationalizing the wrong deed and then you have to act upon it from the guilt of your thought? And when are you doing a wrong deed simply because you just didn't think it through and just after the image of the thought you reconciled yourself? And a challenge for you guys is when that kind of thought arises, and it will arise for every one of us, sometimes even every day, depends on how well moral you are. Instead of trying to conceal it or act upon it and then regretting, understand the thought from itself and then decide to either act upon it or not. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please leave a comment below and subscribe if you enjoy this kind of content. I hope that the channel will grow bigger and more people will find out about Thus Spoke Zarathustra and its meaningful lessons. If you have anything else you want me to cover, whether it's Thus Spoke Zarathustra, another book, different philosophy, more about my personal life, please do share that in the comments, as in the end of the day, you're the one that matters, not me. Thank you guys for watching.